me, I see you, there's no problem. In the Arabian Peninsula, the assumption was actually the opposite. That unless you had an express treaty of peace, meaning if I see another group or I see a member of a group and he's not with a tribe with whom we have a peace treaty, he's fair game to be robbed, exploited, enslaved, taken advantage of. Like he's fair game. Like, it's like instantly, like as soon as I see him, it's like, if we don't have a peace treaty, you can be violated. The sacred months were all about facilitating the movement of people through the Arabian Peninsula to get to the Haram, and then allowing them to get back. So all of the kind of intramural tribal warfare stopped, so people could come and make Hajj during the Dhul Hijjah, and then they can get back, and then the fight can just keep going. So it was kind of like, look, I have to make Hajj now. So, which is really, it's interesting because even they respected the sanctity of the pilgrimage. Meaning, if they saw somebody on his way to Mecca for Hajj, he was off limits. So you can't touch him. He's going to make Hajj right now. He's good. They good. No matter, you can't do nothing. These are the sacred months. Yeah. Even the bad, everybody adhered to this principle in the Arabian Peninsula. Even highway robbers. It's like sacred months. Our hands are tied. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihil kareem wa ba'd. Mashallah, welcome on this blessed federal holiday, Juneteenth. We, in this session, have been reviewing the names of Allah, the names and attributes of Allah. And, last week we had Al-Khaliq, Al-Bari, Al-Musawwir. And this week we have Al-Latif Al-Rafiq. Al-Latif Al-Rafiq. So Lutf and Latif comes from the word Lutf. Lutf is literally gentleness. It is to be gentle. But it also refers to subtleness, to be subtle. So there's two ways that scholars begin with the explanation of God's name, El-Latif. One is that God is Latif, and usually connected with the name Latif is Khabir, aware of all of the subtleties of things. Like God knows all of the minute details of everything. Those things that often evade our judgment, evade our discernment. God is aware of everything, even the smallest details. One way that you can see this is in those chance encounters that people call coincidences. Whenever I think about a coincidence, like the fact that I would happen to see somebody passing by, I always think the smallest delay for either of us would have caused us not to have been at that point, at that exact moment. If you were delayed by a car, I was delayed by a car. You were delayed by a train, I was delayed by a train. You had to pull over and use the bathroom. I had to pull over and use the bathroom. If any of that would have happened, we would have never encountered each other at that precise intersection. So all of those things had to happen exactly as God decreed them for us to see each other by chance as we're seeing each other, right? This is God's awareness of even the small things, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, and this is something to think about. I think a lot of people don't connect this to themselves. Not even a leaf falls from a tree. Now, you know how many trees there are in the world? You know how many leaves there are on those trees? And God is saying, not even a single leaf falls from a tree, except that it is in a book of knowledge that is with God, meaning I'm aware of everything, every minute detail. And for some people, historically, philosophically, it was always hard for them to imagine God being aware of creation in that way. Some people, a lot of the Greek philosophers, they almost felt like it would be unbecoming of, like, God is too far removed. God is too distant to know all of those small, minute details. No, Allah actually makes very clear in the Quran that God's transcendence, Allah, Akbar, mashallah. I gotta wait till a holiday to see my brother, you know what I mean? Allah, Akbar, good to see you. God makes clear in the Quran that, you know, those two qualities of Allah, they are perfectly intertwined. And when we make mistakes in either one, we don't worship God as God has commanded us to worship. One is God's transcendence. God is above creation. God cannot be likened to a creature, right? When people don't understand God's transcendence, they make God into idols. They say that prophets have been God. They say that spirits are God. Some people say nature is a God, right? All of this is a violation of God's transcendence. Whenever, you know, there's a good word in English, the word is alterity, which means complete otherness. Anything that you can conceive of with your mind, meaning you know its start, you know its beginning, you know its limitations, what it is and what it isn't. Allah is greater than that. Allah is more than that. This is when you say Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater. But Allah is greater than Allahu Akbar min kulli shay. Allah is greater than everything. Thus, in English, Allah is the greatest. Anything that you can conceive of with your mind, God is greater than that. God is above that, right? However, this quality of transcendence can also be taken to a blameworthy extreme. See, when people take transcendence to a blameworthy extreme, God is not personal anymore. God is not close. God is distant. God is removed. There used to be, I don't know how popular this is anymore, but there used to be a philosophical school known as deists or deism. These were people who believed in a creator God. Like they recognized that creation must have a creator, right? There has to be an uncaused cause for everything that is in existence. But they did not believe that we could know anything about that creator. They did not believe that that creator communicated with human beings, or that that creator revealed him or herself in creation or anything like that. They just said, as a philosophical necessity, yeah, I guess there has to be, you know, something that brought all of this into existence. So they believed in a God that was so transcendent that God was not personal anymore, that God wasn't, you know, so for them, there was no need to pray. There was no need to fast. They did not believe in miracles. They did not believe in scripture. They just believed in a creator God. Like, yeah, God created us, but beyond that, we can't really say anything. The other quality of God is something in English that is called immanence. To feel that God's close, a God that you can call on, a God that you can pray to, a God that you rely upon, a God that blesses you, a God that sends prophets, a God that sends miracles, a God that sends scripture, something that I can feel this. When people go to a blameworthy extreme in, I guess, emphasizing God's immanence, they make idols. See, for a person that is kind of struggling to find God, for the idolater, I'm not struggling God right there. There, right there. That's a very imminent God. It's close, but it violates what? The transcendence. It's not a transcendent God, right? Islam, and this is one of the distinctions of Islam. Islam, now these are two, this is when you talk about like world religious history. You can take both of these qualities, transcendence, immanence, And just look at all religious groups that believe in God. Some religious groups don't believe in God, right? Well, it's not, their belief isn't centered around God. But for religious groups that believe in God or gods, they're always going between immanence and transcendence, wanting to feel that God is close, wanting to acknowledge that God is beyond. Islam holds them in almost a perfect balance. That God is above anything you can think of, and yet, God is still closer to you than your jugular vein, right? Just that alone is enough to make the mind explode. God is removed. God is more than you can fathom, and yet God is also close, right? So Latif is one of those names of Allah, and mashallah, we have someone named Latif tuning in today, mashallah, that reminds us of how close God is to us, right? Now, in God being close to us, God is also gentle in the way that God deals with us. Right? It's very gentle, it's very subtle, which, subhanAllah, I was thinking about Allah one day. And some days I think about Allah. I was thinking about Allah one day. And I thought, wouldn't it be easier if we didn't experience the regularity that we do in our lives? Wouldn't it be more indicative of a will if one day a day was 24 hours, next day 72 hours, next day 2 hours, the sun going up, down? If it all seemed arbitrary, if it wasn't so systematic, I think it would be more clear to us that there was a will controlling this creation. But because it happens with such precision, such synchronicity and regulation, it is very easy for you to forget that there's a God controlling all of this, because it seems like clockwork, right? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Who is that mysterious woman? Saudi merchant, mashallah, right? Because it's happening so precisely, because it's happening, it almost seems like, oh, the cosmos is controlling itself. No, that's a Latif, that's God's subtlety. Now, for those that are spiritually aware and open, even in that sunnah of Allah, that a day is 23 and a quarter hours, or whatever it's not 24 hours, by the way. A day is like 24, and that's why we have a leap year. Something it's like 24 and a little bit. And then after 2 years, they put it back by giving the leap year. It's like 24 in a few seconds or so. No one here likes science? Adnan, you don't know? There's a day is not 24 hours. A day is like 24 hours and a little bit, which is why they have a leap year every 4 years, which is why we have a leap year every 4 years to put it back to balance, because the day is not just 24 hours, right? But in any event, the reason why some people see the subtlety of God in the precision and regularity with which we experience natural phenomena, but it's subtle. You have to pay attention. See, if it was more overt, like I said, sun just coming down. God said, I want the sun, no, I want it down. Yeah, right. Sun, no, winter, hot, cold. Right. Now, number one, if God did that, nobody would be able to live with any degree of what? I mean, how could you plan anything? Right? But the fact of the matter is that it's subtle. It's subtle. Now, when God gives miracles, in books of Islamic theology, miracles were always referred to as kharqul aada, a break in that natural chain of events, right? Meaning something is miraculous when it represents a break and what we've come to identify as what normally happens. Whenever God does that, it's a glaring reminder in control. This is not just happening on its own. At any time that I want to interrupt that natural chain of events, that can happen. But the natural chain of events, this is the sunnah of Allah. So when Ibrahim alayhi salam was cast into the fire, and Allah said to the fire, Kuni baradan salama ala Ibrahim. Be cool and peaceful for Ibrahim. Fakhr ad-Din al-Razi, great exegete of the Quran, he said God had to say, be cool and be peaceful. Because God could have said, be cool, and the fire still could have burned him. Because fire does not burn because it's intrinsically hot. Fire burns by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Even in those kinds of chemical reactions that we would think just happen naturally, fire burns. No, fire burns by the permission of Allah. At any time Allah wants to take heat out of fire, He can do that, as exemplified in the story of Ibrahim. But the reason why 99.999999999 times out of 100 fire will burn is because God is subtle. It's not fire cold, fire hot, fire. God is subtle. God is subtle. The other meaning of Latif is God is gentle. God is gentle with the servants of God. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Ma dakhala rifqun fi shay'in illa zana, wa ma nuzi'a rifqun min ash-shay' or min shay'in illa shana." How can I call sallallahu that gentleness is not included in anything except that it beautifies that which it comes into contact with. It is always better to be gentle. The Prophet ﷺ said in an authentic hadith, "Al-mu'minu ghirrun karimun wal-fajiru khabbul la'im." That the Muslim, the mu'min, the believer, ghirrun. The word ghirrun means like ghirrun. It's like almost like gullible. Not gullible, but you shouldn't be gullible. He also said, he said the Muslim doesn't fall into the same hole over and over again. But the Muslim she is so gentle, she naturally thinks good of people. In the same way that people that are very vicious, they think that other people are vicious. I was trying to explain this. Assalamu alaikum, Charles. Good to see you. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I was trying to explain this. And one brother said, no, I understand what you're saying. He said, because if you are a thief and you steal all the time and something of yours comes up missing, you'll think somebody stole it. You know what I'm saying? Because you steal all the time. But if, on the other hand, you don't steal, right? And if you misplace something, your assumption would be what? I must have misplaced it, right? El-mu'minu ghirrun. That's the ghir. But where do my keys go? I must have misplaced my keys, right? But then the Prophet ﷺ said, "Wal-fajiru khabbul la'im." A person that is that rebels against God, they're khabbul la'im, they're vicious, like their tendency is toward deceit and deception. And this is kind of the prism through which they see life: deceit, deception, dishonesty, exploitation, manipulation, taking advantage of people. Why? Because they're trying to prevent themselves from being taken advantage of. See, that's that kill or be killed mentality, right? Dog eat dog world. Gotta get him before he gets me. It's either me or you. It's not gonna be me. This kind of mentality. The Prophet ﷺ associated that with people that were removed from the path of God. But there's a kind of innocence, right? That is a type of gentleness that Muslims naturally have. So like if a Muslim sees someone, sisters don't ever do this. But if you see somebody on the side of the road, they have their hazard lights on. Right? Most Muslims pulling over to say, if you need any help, are not assuming you're going to produce a gun and rob me. Then it's just not the assumption that you're going to produce a pistol and rob me. I would think you must have needed help. Why else would you pull your car over and put your flashes on? Right? The Prophet ﷺ is saying that the Muslim is naturally gentle in that way. تَخَلَّقْ بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ. There are certain characteristics that God embodies or expresses at the highest level. We can express them at lower levels. Lutf or gentleness is one such quality. Right? We should always be gentle. The Prophet ﷺ was gentle in the way that he did everything. This is the premarital counseling. Charles, I'm talking to you. The Prophet ﷺ was gentle in the way that he did everything. He was gentle in the way that he spoke. He was gentle in the way that he used his hands. Aisha, radiallahu anha, she said, I have never seen the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, strike a child, strike a woman, strike a servant, or strike anybody with his hand, except that he was fighting in the path of God. I mean, it wasn't his habit to strike anybody. Never did that. Never did that. Anas ibn Malik, who used to run errands for the Prophet alayhi salam. Anas just got put to the job. His mother wanted to give the Prophet a gift. She didn't have any money. I have something better than a gift. Take my son. Yeah. He'll run. He'll do anything you want him to do. Right? And Anas said, I've never touched silk. I've never touched any fabric. Eliyan min kathi Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I've never touched anything softer than the hands of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I always tell people, whenever you read this, know that Anas is not describing the skincare routine of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now the Prophet has his hands soaking in olive oil. This is when a person's physical characteristics match their character. See, I don't care how physically soft a hand is. If the hand handles you roughly, you never describe that hand as being gentle. You see? If your father smacks you, you don't think, man, Dad, what you using? Noxema? Yo, your hand is so soft. I've never been slapped with a hand that was that soft. That's the softest hand I've ever been slapped with in my life. Never happens. No. You describe, and likewise, even if someone's hand is calloused and gnarled, like, many of us had, elders that used to work in labor. So after a lifetime of shoveling, a lifetime of drilling, a lifetime of working, the hands are calloused, the hands are gnarled. But if that person was always kind and gentle to you, you don't even remember the physical coarseness of their hand. The hand is gentle because they're gentle. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? So, the Prophet ﷺ, he did everything with gentleness, and he did everything with subtlety. The Sahaba, they learned to watch him, and they knew when he was upset because he didn't express his anger. They said if he was upset at something somebody said, he would turn his face away and grab his beard. They know, okay, that means he's upset. He didn't like that. Somebody said something he didn't like, he turned his face. Salam alaikum, how are you? Alhamdulillah. If he didn't like something, he turned his face away. They said that, and this is all we studied the Shama'il, mashallah. The Prophet ﷺ was sitting in a gathering, and men started to talk about women in a dishonorable way. And by this, most commentators say they meant Trump's phrase, locker room talk. Locker room talk. Men describing their physical exploits with women and what they do. The prophet would just get up and walk away. I'm not a part of that. I don't like that. I don't participate in that. But he didn't turn to them and say, stop with a wall. They said if we mentioned women in a dishonorable way, he would get up and walk away. I don't like that. I'm not. Everything about him was gentle. You know, Aisha said that she had some curtains. They were heavily embroidered. Not like with representational images, but a lot of embroidery, heavy designs. The Prophet ﷺ came in, looked at the curtains, fixed his gaze on them, and then didn't say anything. She said, talking to you, this is the marital counsel, man. She said, he doesn't like the curtains. Look at her level of attentiveness to, her husband. Now, my husband is not the kind of man that's going to yell. He's not the type of man that's going to snatch the curtains down. Some brothers think, stop for a wall. He's not that kind of man. The most that he's going to do in his subtle gentleness is look at them. That's it. She has to catch that. She says, I think you don't like these curtains. He said, no, the embroidery is so heavy, they distract me when I pray. I feel that when I'm praying, the curtains will distract me when I'm focused on my prayer. So Aisha instantly took the curtains down, cut the fabric, and just gave the fabric away to people. But when you're with a person that is gentle, you have to know they don't scream, they don't holler, they don't yell, right? There's a sheikh named Sheikh Abdullah al-Qadi, Saudi Arabia sheikh. And so people said that he's like that. I've never met Sheikh Abdullah, but he's very gentle in that way. And they said that there were some brothers, they had him at a hotel, at a conference, and they were just talking his head off. And they said that somebody said, Sheikh, is it getting late for you? And he said, oh, it's fine if you guys are enjoying the conversation. But his saying, that was all you're going to get. Other than that, he's going to keep it going. And then somebody said, no, brothers, we should let him retire. He said, just like he's a gentle person. He said, somebody else in the gym, man, I'm tired of it, man. Y'all just going to keep talking all night. Y'all going to keep this going up. He said, just his, if you guys are enjoying this, we can keep this going. That's all, like a person is gentle. Everything the Prophet did, alayhi sallam, he was gentle. And we have to be gentle. We have to be people of rifq. Right? The Prophet, alayhi sallam, he did not like harshness in anything. Anything that was harsh, he rejected it. And there was a man, he came to the Prophet sallam, and he had, as the Prophet was speaking with him, a boy came to ask the Prophet something. The Prophet rubbed the young man's head and then kissed the young man's head. And the man said, you kiss the children? You kiss kids? You kiss children? Now, you have to understand something. For this man, I think, this is my read, I've studied these hadith quite a few times. I think for him, he was a Muslim. The man was a Muslim. But he had this ethic that the leader of a people should be, the most unemotional. Like if I'm following this man into battle, he should be tough, rough. It is his toughness that inspires me. So to see him kiss a little boy on the head, he asked him, you kiss children? The Prophet ﷺ responded, yes, I kiss children. The man said, I have 10 children. I've never kissed a single one of them. I have 10 children. I've never kissed a single one. Prophet ﷺ said, you should kiss your children. You should kiss your children. That's the brothers that have the Prophet ﷺ said, you should kiss your children. He said, what do I have in this religion for someone that God has removed rifq? God has removed tenderness from their heart. There you have it. that if you don't have tenderness in your heart, you won't find any value in Islam. Islam is not going, you're not going to understand it correctly, and you might find that it's not for you. That's if we're teaching Islam correctly. If you're somebody that everything with you is harsh, hard, maybe this is not the right religion for you. محمد رسول الله محمد رسول الله على الصلاة على الصلاة ودرجة رفيعة وبعث مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. But the public service now. You have a lot of brothers who we know these hadith, we've read them, we've heard them, but somehow we don't try to live up to them, and instead we consider ourselves implementing the sunnah of Sayyidina Umar. I know a lot of people that associate Umar with everything harsh, everything rough. You see somebody that's just antisocial. Sayyidina Umar. Umar. I'm like, Umar. No, you're like Shaitan. No. You're not like Sayyidina Umar. Sayyidina Umar had an outward abrasiveness, or I wouldn't even say abrasiveness. He was outwardly very forward. And that was just the nature of his disposition was like that. A lot of it was things he couldn't even control. He was very tall, he was very muscular, he was bald, we can't control this, it happened. He had a long mustache, he had a thick beard, and his aspect was quite intimidating. People said that Umar was the person that he cast a very large shadow. That if he walked and he approached a gathering, they said you would think he was mounted on a horse. That his presence was, and he had that very direct sense of right and wrong. So if he saw something wrong, he would address it like rightly. He was very direct in that way. But in no way was he a harsh, coarse, callous, rough, ungentle person. That is a mischaracterization of Sayyidina Umar. Even in the famous story that he sees his sister reciting the Quran with her husband and he attacks both of them, it says that when he struck her, she started bleeding and he stopped. Right? He wasn't, yes, he did. He, in a fit of rage, struck his brother-in-law, struck his sister. But when it was clear to him, oh my God, I hurt her. Oh my God, he stopped and he started to read the Quran. So even the stories people talk about Sayyidina Umar, I just think these have to be put in context. There's a great story about Sayyidina Umar when he was the Khalifa, the leader of the Muslims. They said if an animal stumbled in a street in Medina, Sayyidina Umar would ask Allah not to punish him, right? For not taking better care of the streets, for not, an animal. So Sayyidina Umar was transformed by the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ. We'll go up, we'll pray Asr, inshallah, then we'll come back down. Yeah, but how are you? ولا إله إلا الله رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
You're allowed his number? You're allowed his number? Yes. How come? She's good. Oh, yeah. I think it'd be better to. She's gonna go to Iowa. Yeah, for a week. How long was she usually go back home? Before the home. Okay, we can chat. Maybe we can do it fine. At least. And across the city, we're not allowed, but, yeah. Oh, God. It's a whole. Yeah, like just a little bit. Yes. Weird, but like he has to be. My sister was
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. So we were talking about living with the name of Latif. The first point was be gentle. The second point about living with this name, El Latif, is thank God for the subtle things. It's easy to thank God for those, very obvious blessings, but the small things, try to also show gratitude for those things. I was teaching a class and one sister said there are over 30,000 ailments that the body can be afflicted with. 30,000 ailments that they've identified. I mean, there's probably more than 30,000. They've currently identified about 30,000 ailments that the body can be afflicted with. Even if, we're afflicted with 2 or 3, that's still 29,997 ailments that you don't have, that you could have. Thanking God for those subtle things. Thinking about small things, like sometimes I think, what if our hearts didn't beat involuntarily? What if we had to tell them, beat, 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 beat? Ooh, don't forget. Don't forget, you might be in some trouble. Yeah. How you get any rest? Yes, beat, beat, beat. No, our hearts beat involuntarily. I think it's subtle. It's amazing, man. A person said that Americans now are living lives of such ease, and we scarcely even thank God. I was using my washing machine last week. And as I was getting my clothes out, I said, man, this has to be the easiest anyone has ever washed clothes, that had to wash them themselves, unless you can tell somebody to wash my clothes. But you put them into a washing machine, literally pour the soap in, press a button, pull them out, put them in the dryer, pull them out, put them on. And just 100 years ago, people had to scrub their clothes with their hands and wring them. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like air travel. Every time I travel often for work, Every time someone picks me up at the airport, how was your flight? How was it? It took off and it landed. It was great. If the flight had really gone poorly, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd be saying, obey, Allah yarhamu. It'd be over. So I just traveled a distance that would have normally taken people days, maybe a week in a different era. And we can do that just in hours while comfortably watching a movie on your phone. I'm just like, dude, you have to thank God. These are the small things, man. The small things. You know, when you look at the du'as of the Prophet, ﷺ, they said that when the Prophet would leave the washroom, he would praise Allah for removing waste that were he not to be able to remove it would have caused him harm. SubhanAllah. Like thinking about those things, the small things, like those subtle things that easy to overlook those things. You know, there's a beautiful story in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, that the Prophet was so hungry, he couldn't sleep at night. Right? This is the messenger of Allah. He was so hungry, he could not sleep at night. He's in his bed, tossing, turning. So he gets up and decides to walk around. Now, mind you, this tells you something about self-sufficiency and how much of a virtue it is. This is Allah's messenger. He could have said, what? Somebody give me some food. People would have jumped over each other trying to put the food in his mouth. But he would rather be hungry at night, unable to sleep, than simply make an announcement, I'm hungry, somebody give me something. Who got something for me? Now he's so hungry, he can't even sleep at night. He comes out, he's walking around, he sees Abu Bakr. And he says, Ya Abu Bakr, ma akhrajaka min baytik wa min nawmik. What brought you out from your home, from your sleep? Saying to Abu Bakr, he didn't tell the truth. He said, what brought me out? I was hoping that I would see you. I was hoping that I would see your face. I was hoping that I could give you salam. Prophet just nodded. Then they saw Omar, and he says, Ya Ibn al-Khattab, ma akhrajaka min baytik. Omar, what brought you out? Omar was more blunt. Al-ju', hunger. What brought me out? Hunger. That's what brought me out. Prophet said, that's what brought me out too. That's what got me up. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr said, just to see your face, give me salam. Hunger. And so then one of them said, there's somebody from the Ansar. He has, some food. If we go and knock on his door, maybe he. And they said that when they knocked on the door, he wasn't there. His wife opened the door. And they said he just went to a well to get us some water. But you guys can just wait in the waiting area of the house. Like small houses, just waiting area, family area. And they said that when he came back home, his wife told him, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe who's in the other room. You're not going to believe that. He said, who? The Prophet, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar. They're all in the house waiting on you. He said his face just lit up. There's nobody in the world that has finer guests than me. Nobody. There's nobody in the world that has finer guests than me. And so they said that he started. He said he slaughtered the animal. They said he milked his animals. He's preparing a whole meal. And look at what the hadith said. Brothers, we don't like these hadith. He was doing it. He didn't tell his wife, get them something together. He said, he started preparing the meal. I want all of the blessing. I'm doing this with my hands. His wife probably had to fight him. Look, let me need some. Let me get it. Oh, no, this is all me. This is all me out here, baby. You said, who's in there waiting? They said, man, the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, he presented him with the food. the prophet was telling him, not too much. Don't give us too much. Don't slaughter any of your best animals. Just don't. Just they said that they were sitting back, reclining on the wall. The prophet looked at Sayyidina Omar, looked at Sayyidina Abu Bakr and said, these are the blessings of God that will question about. Gates. Oh, wow. Great. You know, and people say they just woke up because they were hungry. And there the prophet was reminding them about gratitude. You would think that in that moment, you'd be reminding somebody, hey, things gonna get better. We're not always gonna be walking around hungry, waiting for somebody to feed us. No, he was reminding them about gratitude, even in that, and this is the blessing. Now what about us? Got a refrigerator full of food, cabinets full of food. Man, we have to be careful, man. I'm telling you, man. And I'm talking about some of us will still express frustration. Open the refrigerator, it's full of food. Ain't nothing to eat in it. Oh, guess I just gotta order something. Food comes to your door with a person bringing it to you hot. DoorDash. Then you look at your watch. I was expecting you 15 minutes ago. Give me my food. It's like, how ungrateful can you get? Yo, this is serious, man. The person just brought the food to you hot. You ordered it on a telephone. They come to your door with it. You take it angrily. Well, last time was a little better than this. No. It scares me. I'm just like, this is prophecy, man. If you would have told people of the past that everyday people, not kings, would live like this, they wouldn't have believed you. And this is not a religious perspective. This is an economic perspective. They wouldn't have believed you. They wouldn't have believed you. Regular people will pick up a device, call the food. They can choose from hundreds of different types of food. The food is delivered to their door. Bro, like when you have historical perspective, it's just like you look at this stuff, you're just like, subhanAllah. My wife somehow discovered leaven the cookies. Oh my God. Every day the man's coming dropping off cookies at my house. Every day. I'm just like, dang. Wow. Wow. Yeah, but this is how but my wife, mashallah, is very, very, I know her to be very thankful and very appreciative of everything she has, but it really is like, wow, man, this is normal to us, man. Look, it's okay. It's the favor of God, but thank Allah for it. Don't just hit your DoorDash and hit this little stupid app. Yeah, I guess I have me some doghouse today, man. Now. Just picked up my phone and ordered some food, man. It's coming to my door. This is amazing. So just try to thank Allah for those subtle blessings. And then the last point about living with this name is, a beautiful verse in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاصْفَحُوا وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا. The Prophet ﷺ is told by God, if you had been hard-hearted, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. These are those verses that if you aren't Muslim, it's like, how do you understand this? God is speaking directly to the Prophet ﷺ. And he says, if you were a hard-hearted person, if you were like a callous person, then the people would have run away from you. Think about that. Now look, let's get a little deep here. This verse of the Quran, this is a verse from the book of God. It's telling you that what? Truth is not enough. Even if the Prophet ﷺ was a mean person, he still would have been true. He still would have been a prophet. You know, he was mean. It was just been one situation like, man, he is a prophet. He's kind of mean. He's not like, yo, he is true, but yo, that truth is he's kind of rough. You know, Allah told him, you know, even if you were the prophet, but you were mean, they would have, the truth would not have convinced them. Your coarseness in your character would have repelled them more than the truth would have attracted them. One of my teachers told me, this tells you everything you need to know about human beings. Sometimes it's not the truth of what you're saying or untruth of how does it make me feel? If it makes me feel bad, I can't even see the truth of what you're saying, right? It's not about the truth. This, by the way, most important marital advice I ever received in my life. One of my teachers, if God is saying this to the messenger of Allah, everything he speaks is true. And God is telling him, but in spite of that, if your character had been coarse and hard, then فَضُّ مِنْ حَوْلِكَ, they would have run from you. I can't deal with it. Truth is not enough. Truth must be mixed with kindness in order for it to be compelling. Right? All of us know brothers, mashallah. Zaki is redeeming them. They practice the beauty of the outward sunnah, and their character repels you. We've met people like that. You see them, and just because you have a good feeling about what we call the shi'ar of Islam, those things that remind you of Islam, you see them like, but there's something about the character. Oh man, subhanAllah. Right? One of our sheikhs, he said, واحد منهم يطلق لحيته ويقصر ثوبه وإن في قلبه كبر فرعون. One of them lengthens his beard, he shortens his thobe, but in his heart is the arrogance of Pharaoh. Right? All of this is supposed to be an indication of humility. In his heart is the arrogance of Pharaoh. So the truth is not enough. It's not even about that sometimes, man. It's not about that. Sometimes, especially, you know, in relationships, we argue on the basis of what's true. What I'm saying is true. This is right. This is right. This is right. Another thing I've been told. When you're arguing with your wife, the worst thing you can say, call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The worst thing you could ever say. Allah Almighty has said, oh, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Oh, because now in the context of argument, it seems like what? The religion is being weaponized against me. Now I have a point, you have a point. Now you're using the religion to invalidate my point. Oh man. And I know you can speak Arabic, so that seems like it's really seem official because you said it. You don't know nothing. You know what I'm saying? You know, so gentleness. Okay, gentleness. Another point from this, the most important dawah that we can ever give is in our character. Words, you know, as the expression goes, talk is cheap. Anybody can talk, man. Anybody can talk. Anybody can say anything. It's your actions that really matter, right? So these are just some ways of thinking about Allah's names, Al-Latif, Rafiq, living with them, thanking Allah for all of those small, subtle kindnesses that He shows us. You know, being gentle with everything, you know, especially animals. You know, I remember being in Egypt and seeing some young men torturing a dog, just torturing this poor dog, man, blowing up firecrackers on the dog, hitting the dog. It was terrible. And I was with a teacher of mine, And he said something to me. He said, now you see that? You see that? This is a helpless dog. This is what these young men are doing to the dog. He said, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Muslims the siyada of the dunya, gave the Muslims the leadership of the dunya, so that now we're in a position of power, how would we behave? How would we treat people that we now could actually mistreat if we had power? Then he nodded to the kids, just like that. That's why Allah ain't giving us no power. They learned this from somewhere. They learned this from somewhere. He's just treating this dog terribly. They learned this from somewhere. This is a systemic thing when you see this, man. You know, there was a Syrian scholar named Kawakibi. He's writing in the 19th century. He says, the problem with the Muslims today is istibdad, which is despotism. That everybody who has been placed in a position of leadership over anybody else abuses that position of leadership. That's our problem. And he said that this is a pathology that runs through the whole society. You can start from the top. The head of state or the governor, he abuses the people. Then he says, the muwaddifin, the people that have money, the people that open businesses, they abuse their employees. Then those employees who at that time were mostly men, they abuse their wives. Then the wives abuse the children. He said, man, it goes through the whole society. He said, it goes through the whole, this is a trend, right, of abuse of power that goes through the whole society. It's like a pathology, it's a sickness that goes through the whole Muslim ummah, right? We have to be very careful of that, man. We have to be very careful of that. Anybody who's given a position of leadership, know that your leadership is only judged according to how gentle you are. Doesn't mean you have to be effective, but you have to be gentle, especially to things that you have been empowered over. That's why I mentioned animals, right? In fact, they say one of the most common characteristics of serial killers, sociopaths, psychopaths is animal abuse. These are the people that when they was young used to beat up animals, they hit cats and hit dogs and stuff like that for fun. Something there is off. Give my brother a chair. Something there is off. Something's wrong. Because the prophetic quality of gentleness is being neglected. Right? SubhanAllah, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that if it were not mutawatir, if it were not reported by various chains of people, so many that at least 4, it would be impossible for them to come together to fabricate this. This is true. That the Prophet ﷺ used to stand on a tree stump. Used to stand like on a tree stump and give the khutbah, like stand behind it, give the khutbah. Then the people thought, we should build him a minbar. The little thing you see in the masjid with the steps. It might be nicer than that. So they built him a minbar. And so the first Jummah he was using the minbar, he stood on the minbar and started giving the khutbah. They said the tree stump started crying. And the Sahaba, again, this is mutawatir, said we could hear the tree weeping. The Prophet stopped the khutbah, went over, comforted the tree. It's okay, I'm coming back to you, baby. It's okay. It's all right. I just want to honor this gift of this minbar. But I'm coming back. Went back and continued giving the khutbah. I want you just to reflect on that for a minute. This is a man that will stop his khutbah to comfort a tree. Something that we think of as an inanimate object. What then for human beings, man? Some people will hear these hadith and like, okay, this is a little bit fairy tale. No. This is a man that will stop his khutbah to comfort a tree. He's letting you know what his priorities are. If I hear the tree is in distress, I'll stop. Hold on. I'm coming back to the khutbah. Let me comfort this tree. Let me come back. The Prophet ﷺ would be giving khutbah. People were coming to the masjid. There was a man came to the masjid. I mean, like sometimes when we think about our religion, our rituals, a man came into the masjid, no decor. I mean, what is this? What is this whole Islam? What is Islam? Islam, what's that? Prophet stopped the khutbah, walked over to him, explained what Islam was. Gave him the 5 pillars, went back and continued giving the khutbah. This was his consideration for people. Right? They said Hassan and Hussein, he went into sajda. Hassan and Hussein, they climbed on his back. They're just having fun on his back, playing. They said, man, he stayed in sajda so long, we thought he died. We thought he died. We thought he was dead. That's how long he was like this. When he finally came up, we asked him after the prayer, yo, man, you was in sajda so long, we thought you died. What happened? He said, my grandsons, they were playing on my back. I didn't want to disturb their play. So I probably thought it was some spiritual reason. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they like, no, you know, they were playing on my back. I didn't want to disturb their play. This is how the Prophet actually was in real life. You know, so, you know, leadership entails gentleness, service. Now, this is a social perspective. When leadership is abused, it does not only entail that the person that was subjected to that abusive leadership was abused. The person becomes cynical and they don't believe in leadership at all. You see? And this is why you can see people that, you know, if a woman has experienced an abusive father, abusive to her, abusive to the mother, the idea that the husband can be a legitimate leader of their family in any way, I don't believe that, because I've never seen that before. To me, leadership is something that entails abuse, exploitation, making people uncomfortable, taking advantage of them. I don't know anything other than that, right? So you have to be very careful, man. You have to be very careful in the way that you lead. I'm only looking at Charles because he's about to get married. That's all I'm looking at Charles. But you have to be very careful in that regard, and that be very, very careful in that regard. Well, you know, it's in a manner. It's in a manner. The same thing, the Prophet ﷺ said, كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول على رعيته. All of you are shepherds, women and men. And all of you will be held accountable according to how you led your flock. Right? Your leadership. It's very important, man. You know, I feel like that's where this country is now. That's the only way. I don't want to get on my soapbox, start preaching my political preaching, but I don't even know how you get, elect a man like Donald Trump. Stop it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that, when leadership is bad, people get really confused, man. They get really confused. That's, man, what? Now you can have somebody that actually is abusive. They think that person can protect them. It's just, this. So all of you are leaders. This hadith is one of the most democratic and inclusive hadith in our tradition. All of you are leaders. You lead something. You lead something. If you're a woman, you lead your household. If you're a man, you lead your household. You're a business owner, you lead your business. If you're an employee, you lead your section of where you work. Even if the only thing that you lead is yourself. I lead these hands, these feet, this tongue, these eyes, these ears. I am definitely the leader of those. Lead them responsibly. Right? So lead responsibly, man. And then the last thing, it said, be gentle, thank Allah, and be exemplary in your character. It's the subtle things about you that people notice. It's It's not so much the overt, outward things that scream. It's the subtle things about you that people notice. So we'll stop there. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Any questions about this? About anything else? Yes.
I have a question about like guidelines when it comes to being gentle. Like, so I was thinking about like, what if it's like, for some people, it's just part of their character to just, like my dad, for example, like he's, I mean, I don't know how he grew up or anything, but like his way of showing like love is to be a little bit harsh, which is cool with me, but the rest of my siblings I saw like responded in a different way. And there's also like situational gentleness or like roughness where like I took this that he son was like, I think he's interacting with a tribe that had not yet embraced Islam, and he was like different with them, a bit harsher than he normally would have been. So what are guidelines that we can use to assess this?
Yeah, I mean, gentleness is always based on context. It should be a goal always, because the Prophet ﷺ promised that Allah gives through gentleness that which He does not give through harshness. That's hadith sahih from the Prophet ﷺ. So if you want to be effective, gentleness is always more effective than harshness. However, you can be direct, you can be firm without being violent or coarse, right? So just like we teach our children, if somebody touches you in a way that you don't want to be touched, you say, no, don't touch me like that. You say it, from the diaphragm. Get your hands off me. Could you not touch me? Hey, could you, hey, I don't like that. There was no, don't touch me. Right? I had a teacher. I had a U.S. history teacher named Mr. Korn. His name was Mr. Korn. And Mr. Korn was like the most gentle, like he never could say no. And you just ask him, for the third time in a 1 hour class, Mr. Korn, he goes to the bathroom. Oh, I just, your bladder is really overactive. But, yeah, well, I'm gonna have to say, go ahead, and that was not gentleness. That was, there was something about him that was clearly lacking, that he didn't have the backbone to say, no, this is becoming silly. This is a disruption to class. I've let you go 2 times, that's enough. And I think I've been gentle, right? At this point, you're taking advantage of my kindness. No, right? I remember Mr. Korn finally told me no, but I said something, he was like, I'm gonna have to say no to that. I want to go to like the 5th time in the 1 hour, I need to go back from again. He's like, oh, well, I really like you and I want you to like me, but I'm gonna have to say no to that. At some point, look, no, right? Also, too, I recognize with parents, parents is a tough topic, right? Because we naturally learn our parents' disposition, their style, how they are, how they behave, and we learn to appreciate them. So if you talk to, at least in all of the movies and all the books I've read, Japanese fathers always depicted as being quite stern. They don't, pay compliments very easily. They don't, they're quite, but the son always says if he graduated, his father said, job well done. Oh my God, just, but I realized that if his father was always saying, oh, you're the greatest, you're the best, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that, you're that, then it wouldn't mean as much. Right. So sometimes you have to the parent-child relationship has its own kind of rhythm. Yeah, I remember this one Jamaican woman convert to Islam. She said that her father was that way. He was he didn't pay compliments, just, he didn't just wake up and you look wonderful, you're so smart, you're amazing, your eyes are beautiful. She said that she was going somewhere and he said, you look all right. I meant the world to her. But I mean, that she knows her father. That means it does mean a lot. Now if he was the kind of father that every day, oh, it doesn't mean as much. So, you develop your own rhythm with your parents. You know how they are. What they mean. Like my grandmother, Allah yarhamuha, she was a very loving woman. She was a sharp-tongued woman. My grandma could curse, boy. My grandma gonna curse at you. I'm talking about, man, my grandma would get the cursing, man. Sailors get off their boats and say, excuse me, man, that's what I'm saying. Got obscene. Now, that was how she showed her love. And you knew that it came from a place of love. It just, we knew her. I think that's how family is. I'm talking about, yeah, my grandma, woo, she get to going, boy. And look, and you bet not laugh. You think that funny. you think this a game? I was like, oh, bro, this ain't no game. This ain't no game. you think it's a game? I ain't playing no games. We know you ain't playing. You ain't playing. Mashallah, embrace Islam at the end of her life. Mashallah. We're surprised she didn't curse on Shahab. By the curse on Shahab. She was cursing up a storm. Cursing up a storm. So your family, you just, you learn to deal with. Learn to deal with. You know what I mean? So, and that's kind of some of the security that we get, from family. So I don't have a hard and fast answer. I think everybody shows gentleness in their own way. It should be a goal of all of us, and maybe we will express it in ways that people around us will understand. They'll understand that for him, that's actually quite, that was an effort to be gentle and be a little less direct. For her, so you learn to appreciate your family. Other questions? Allah. What do you guys have planned for the rest of the day? MashaAllah. Allah. Give all the brothers my best, inshallah. Give all the brothers my best. Brothers from England, man, they're on fire. Fire. MashaAllah. You can just sit inside. We got for a few more minutes. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Get back to me to get the quick buff for Eid al-Adha. I try to avoid it when I can. Sometimes I gotta figure out what to do. The Eid of the 28th of June.
Wednesday, yeah, next Wednesday. You said